What's up, everyone? Welcome back. The 2019 NFL Draft has finally come and gone, which means it's now time for me to go through every division and every team and every pick to kind of react and evaluate how they all did last weekend. And if you watch my post-draft recaps and reactions in past years, I've kind of done it all in one big episode and covered probably about half the teams usually in those. Most of the time just kind of touching on a few picks here and there that I liked or didn't like for those teams. But this year I'm doing it a little bit different. I'm going to go through all 32 teams, 2 divisions at a time, over the course of 4 days. So between today and Friday, I'll have 4 installments of my draft recap series, because I really kind of did want to do a deeper dive into every team individually. So to kick that off, we're starting today with the AFC South and the NFC North. And since I'm a Texans fan, we might as well start this whole thing with Houston anyway. So let's begin with one of the more controversial picks of the first round, and that's Tytus Howard, the offensive tackle out of Alabama State. And I mean, full disclosure, even though I'm a Texans fan, I'll be the first to admit that I think that pick was a little bit of a reach myself. I had him graded as a second-round talent, not because I didn't think he had good feet or, length or hand placement. He actually had really a good kick set. I liked how he used his hands. He was good at kind of baiting defensive ends, and he had really, really solid hand placement out on the edge. So it's kind of interesting how people kind of labeled him as a small school project when he had good footwork and he had good hand placement. Technically, he's actually much further along than a lot of other tackles in this class. My problem with him and why I had him graded as a second-round pick is I just didn't think he was very strong. One of the big things that I look for in an offensive tackle is, especially when you kind of come in wide with that punch like Howard likes to do, he kind of protects himself from getting his hands swatted away by coming in wide, and it's also part of the reason why his hand placement was so good. He was good at protecting himself, but when you protect your hands, you don't really protect your chest. And so, I've talked about it before with the hug technique. We looked at, Brian Bulaga. He comes in with those wide hands. Dwayne Brown came in with those wide hands. But the reason why they were able to get away with that is even though they would give up their chest a lot, they had incredible core strength, incredible lower body strength, where even if they gave up their chest, which is, something that offensive line coaches really don't like their tackles to do, but if you give up your chest, you can still kind of anchor down if you have the core strength and the lower body strength to just kind of almost like bend yourself back and just take the bull rush, just absolutely absorb it and just anchor down with pure strength. And so you can get away with that technique if you're really freaking strong. And I just didn't think he was very strong. So to me, it was going to take a while for him to almost like build his body to the caliber that you need to be built to play in that style, essentially. He's not going to be able to go into the NFL and play that way at his current strength. It's impossible. He would get run over every single week. So he could stop the speed rushes, but he wouldn't be able to stop speed to power. Guys like Khalil Mack and DeMarcus Lawrence, even his own teammate, Jadeveon Clowney, like those kind of power rushers would absolutely destroy him. So again, that's why I had him as a second-round pick. It's not because of technique. It's not because of footwork or length or anything like that. All that was fine. It was just purely about strength and, to a degree, flexibility, because you have to have a flexible core as well. And that can take time to build. It really can take time to build. So I don't know if he's an immediate starter, again, because he's going to have to hit the weight room a lot, but that's just how I felt about it. Could he be a great tackle? Yes. Will he be one immediately? I don't think he will. And that's part of the reason why I was a little bit annoyed, because I felt like there were offensive linemen on the board that could be immediate help, that did have the strength and the technique to contribute immediately. I look at guys like Dalton Reisner. I had him graded ahead in terms of total grade. Reisner was interesting because he's more of like a flex offensive lineman. He could play either guard spot. He could play right tackle. He could play center even if he needed him to. But he's extremely strong. I mean, once he gets his hands on you, you're pretty much dead. So if it was me, I would have taken Reisner ahead of Howard. I can understand why they took Howard, because obviously his ceiling is higher, but that just comes down to a draft philosophy thing. I don't think he was a bad pick. It wasn't the one that I would have made, if we're being honest. So there's a lot of Texans fans out there that are still pissed off about it. I'm not one of them. I was more just confused. That's the best word to say. But man, on day 2, I felt like they really redeemed themselves. Lonnie Johnson is a great corner out of Kentucky. I feel like he was a little bit misused at Kentucky because I think he's at his best when he's kind of down near the line of scrimmage, pressing people, using that length to really disrupt routes. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the most explosive guy in the world. So kind of playing him soft and off and saying, okay, I want you to T-step and drive on these routes underneath. That's not really what he does best. He can do it, but we're not talking about Amani Oruwariye or Julian Love, where you can put him 7 yards off and they'll stop a slant every single time. That's not really his game. So with Houston, ideally they'll use him as more of a press corner, a matchup option for big receivers because they do let their corners travel in that defense. It's not strictly a left or a right kind of thing. I don't think he's going to be a starting nickel because, again, I don't know if he's as quick and explosive as you want those slot receiver or slot corners to handle, but you put him on the boundary, you put him in press, and you say just go beat up that big receiver. I think he can do that. So I like that value in the second round. And then they came back again 1 pick later and got Max Sharping from Northern Illinois. He was announced as a tackle. Personally, I saw him as a guard. I don't think he's got the feet to play tackle. Like you watch Titus Howard and you watch Sharping, it's like they're two different species. Like Howard's feet are infinitely better. I don't think that Sharping has the kick set to survive at tackle. We're talking about Howard not being able to handle power. Sharping can handle power, but he can't handle speed. And you can't play tackle in the NFL if you can't handle speed because there's a hell of a lot of really good speed rushers in this league. So to me, he projects at guard. I think he's going to fight in training camp for those starting guard spots. He has a decent chance of winning one of them, to be honest. He'll probably go up against Rankin, is my guess. But Sharping has a chance to win that spot because it's not like Rankin was that good last year anyway. So overall, 2 of their first 3 picks were offensive line pieces. They might not start right away, but they have a chance to start. And I think as long as they play to their strengths, with Sharping being inside and Howard being at tackle, either left or right, I think they could be pretty good contributors. Again, still pissed that they didn't take Reisner and that they didn't, maybe trade up a couple spots and secure Dillard because Dillard's a stud, but it's not the worst, it's not the worst case scenario. I'm okay with it. I'm not super excited, but I'm totally okay with it. I still like these first 3 picks. The one that I really thought was intriguing was Kahale Waring, the tight end in the 3rd round, 1 round later. That was the one where, to me, it could really blow up in their face, or he could be an absolute stud. There's kind of no middle ground. I think when I watch him on tape, he reminds me, this might sound sacrilegious, he reminds me a little bit of Zach Ertz, just in the way he moves. He's not quite as laterally quick. He doesn't have the same kind of shake at the top of his routes of Ertz, but in terms of the frame, the catch radius, the hands, the straight line speed, I mean, he really is a great athlete, and he can play a true Y position, or he can kind of move around and play a big slot just like Ertz. Again, not quite as laterally quick, but just how they move and how they play, he reminds me a lot of Ertz. So if he can turn into that almost like discount Ertz, I mean, that's a pretty damn good tight end and a good value for a 3rd round to me. Griffin, I think, is not a good starter in this league. He's probably going to get cut anyway, so there was a need at that position. Would I have preferred maybe getting more DB depth because they're super thin in the secondary? Yeah, but I mean, I can't really argue with the talent because Waring's upside is absolutely phenomenal. So again, I like that pick as well. And then coming around, they didn't have a 4th round pick because they traded that for Demaryius Thomas. A lot of that good did them. But they came around in the 5th round and got Charles Omenihu from Texas, who's a very versatile defensive lineman. I tweeted this out, I think the night of the draft. And to me, when I look at all the guys that they took, Howard, solid, not spectacular. Johnson, solid, not spectacular. Sharping, again, solid. Waring, could be spectacular, but, jury's out on him. Omenihu's the guy that I look at that could be the centerpiece of this draft class. The guy who I really think will be spectacular. I graded him much higher than a 5th round pick. I thought he was going to be long gone by then. I didn't even realize that he was on the board until he got picked because I was honestly very surprised. He's I don't want to say he's Jadeveon Clowney insurance, but he's pretty damn close. Just the kind of guy you can put anywhere on the front. You want him to play 3-tech, he'll play 3-tech, 5-tech, you can rush him off the edge. Not as explosive as Clowney, but definitely as versatile. So I love that pick, and I made sure to make that known that night because I felt like that might have been my favorite pick of the whole class. Because I feel like it's not just a solid, not spectacular pick. I think that was a spectacular pick. I think he's going to be a key piece to this defense. And if Clowney gets traded, or if they don't feel like he's worth $20 million a year, or whatever it is next offseason, the fact that they now have Omenihu on the roster makes me feel a little bit better. Because I didn't think that they had anybody who could replace Clowney's versatility, and now they do. So I absolutely love that pick. Phenomenal value. Again, I can't even believe he was still on the board at that point, but sometimes it's better be lucky than good. And then they came back around in the 6th round, got Xavier Crawford. He's like the anti-Lonnie Johnson, not super physical, probably not a boundary corner, but he is really quick and he's really explosive, so he probably projects more to that nickel spot. So he'll be competing for that job from day one. Again, he's more of a day 3 flyer, but you can get a pretty good nickel corner in day 3. We've seen a whole bunch of teams in the league get their nickel corners from day 3. For whatever reason, there's just a higher success rate of getting really good slot corners, either as undrafted or as day 3 picks. So as far as position-wise goes, that's a pretty solid gamble. And then in the 7th, they got Colin Gillespie, who's a fullback, running back, H-back, do-it-all special teamer from Texas A&M, who is an absolute crazy person. I mean, I love that pick because he's just going to bring juice to the locker room. He's an excellent special teamer. In terms of non-kickers, non-returners, he was the best special teams player in this whole class. He's going to play on all 4 core special teams units. He'll block, he'll tackle. He's got some linebacker in his background. I mean, the dude just he does everything. Texans fan, if you remember a guy named Brian Brayman, who eventually went to Philadelphia after in Houston, he was an indispensable asset to the special teams of Houston. And we have not really had anybody like him since he left. And I think Gillespie can be that kind of guy. So, again, not a sexy pick, but if you're getting a core special teamer that can make an impact on all of those special teams for the next 7, 8, 9 years, that's pretty damn good value. So overall, when I look at Houston's class as a whole, it's solid but not spectacular. There were a couple spectacular picks, but especially Omenihu. But overall, when you also throw in the fact that I feel like they reached a little bit on the 1st round pick, I can just kind of give it a solid grade, not a great grade. This could end up being a really good class. They got some good depth. And, if Howard develops like they think he's going to develop, yeah, this can turn into a really, truly awesome class. But just my gut reaction, a couple days after, it's just okay. I'm not mad at it. I'm not super enthusiastic about it, but I'm okay with it, which I guess is all you can really ask for as a Texans fan, is just to be okay with your draft class. Moving on now to the Colts, who this was the most Colts draft I can possibly imagine. Toughness on defense, speed on offense. That's really what they kind of build around. And they got really just tough dudes, tough, hardworking, blue-collar guys in Rock Ya-Sin, Ben Banogu, Bobby Okereke, Kari Willis, Marvell Tell, EJ Speed, Jerry Green. I'm just all these just tough, hard-nosed, maybe not the most athletically gifted, but they're going to give it their all every down. They're going to hit like trucks. They're going to practice hard. They're going to study in the film room. The culture that they're building on that defense, I'm really a big fan of, where they might not have a whole lot of A-level talents, but they play well above their talent. You look at Darius Leonard, who, again, maybe not an A-level talent, but the dude is tough as nails. He works hard. He's versatile. He watches film and ends up being, a friggin' all-pro as a rookie. That's what they're looking for in Colts defenders, is that kind of guy. Guys who play above their level of talent and have the production to back it up. So I was really a big fan of their whole defensive class, especially Rock Ya-Sin, who I thought was going to be a 1st-round corner. Hell, I mocked Ya-Sin to the Colts in the 1st round. So them trading back and then still getting him at the top of the 2nd was really incredible value. He fits their scheme perfectly. I think he's going to be a staple in their secondary for a long time. Maybe corner wasn't the biggest need on that defense, but he was certainly the best talent available. So I was pretty pumped about that pick on Colts fans' behalf, even though I'm a Texans fan. And then on offense, it's kind of the opposite. They look for speed, they look for versatility, they look for guys that they can really kind of design plays around. And Paris Campbell probably embodies that more than anybody else in this class. Ultra fast, super shifty, underrated route runner, really, but I think you put him in the slot and you get him moving with drag routes and deep crosses and just really show off that speed, and he can do a lot of pretty special things for you. So I really like that fit for them. They're going to find a lot of uses for him in that short passing game. Just give him the ball in space and let him run. It's really a perfect fit for what they like to do on offense. They're not really a vertical stretch you kind of offense, so I don't think they're going to be using his 4.31 speed on go routes down the boundary, but that's fine because that's not really how Ohio State used him anyway. They're going to get him on the move and they're going to use him. I guess the best way to put it is almost like a Percy Harvin kind of way. Really versatile, really creative play design. So I'm super pumped to see what Frank Reich comes up with on that end. I think he's one of the most innovative offensive minds in the whole league. So if anybody could use Paris Campbell the correct way, it's probably Frank Reich. So overall, a very, very solid Colts draft that pretty much fits their whole culture as a team to a T. It was the most Colts-like draft I could imagine. Moving on now to the Titans, who, they to me, they knocked it out of the park. They got Jeffrey Simmons at 19th overall. I projected him at, I believe, 21st to Seattle in my mock draft because I wasn't doing trades, but he absolutely fits Tennessee as well. I believe I had Jerry Tillery going there in the mock draft because I felt like one of their biggest needs was defensive line. Somebody to put next to Jarrell Casey who can either two gap or one gap, can really push the pocket, has the quickness to penetrate and stop zone runs. And Jeffrey Simmons is essentially, he's Fletcher Cox to me. So even though I felt like maybe the Titans would want more of an immediate contributor because, again, he's coming off ACL. He is so damn talented that you could absolutely justify him at this pick. I think if he plays at all this season and if the Titans are in a playoff hunt, which they very well could be, they're a very talented roster who kind of got screwed over by injuries last year, but they're a very talented roster. If they're in the playoff hunt and they're activating Simmons late in the year, maybe late November, December, even into January as kind of a piece to push them over the edge, that is dangerous. Now, this is a very talented defense and who just needed a couple extra pieces to really get them over the hump. Simmons can be that kind of piece. He is crazy gifted. He might be pound for pound the strongest defensive lineman in this whole class, if I'm being honest. Stronger than Quinnen, stronger than Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins. He is an ox in the middle. And even though he's not like a natural build for a nose tackle, they put him at nose a lot just because they could. He takes on double teams. He completely crushes the front of the pocket. That was a great pick for them. Even though he's not going to play immediately, I loved that fit for them. And then in the second round, they got A.J. Brown out of Ole Miss, who I did not think was going to be there at the 19th pick in the second round. That was also just truly incredible value. I think you can put him day one as your slot receiver, your big slot, which is how I projected him in the NFL. He reminded me really kind of a Jarvis Landry kind of player. Not the fastest on tape, but still plenty fast. He could kind of work you deep a little bit if he needed him to, but great ball skills, excellent body control, toughness over the middle. He'll get you yards after catch. Maybe not as shifty as Jarvis, but just in terms of overall demeanor and play style, that was who he reminded me of. So you plug him into that offense, you're rocking and rolling with Derrick Henry as your running back. You got Delaney Walker coming back healthy, ideally. Jonnu Smith is a freak athlete at tight end. Again, you got AJ in the slot. You got Corey Davis outside. Sharp's coming back. Taywan Taylor's kind of your speed, your gadget guy. Adam Humphries is there also as a slot receiver. He's kind of more of a traditional slot receiver. And again, AJ, he doesn't have to play in the slot. Brown can play on the boundary as well. We saw that a little bit after DK Metcalf got hurt last year. They put Brown out in the boundary role. I think it was the last 4 games of the year, and he did pretty damn good as well. So again, very versatile receiver, which even though he didn't fill the biggest need on that team. I didn't think that receiver was the biggest need, but the value was there, the talent was there, so I really, really like that pick for them. And then they come back one round later. They got Nate Davis, a guard prospect out of Charlotte. He's probably going to be competing for the starting right guard position, which is probably the biggest hole they have on the offense now. They signed Saffold to play left guard, remember. So really right guard was where they were hurting the most. Personally, I kind of felt like Davis was more of a fourth round prospect. I did not project him into the top 3 rounds. But again, it's third round versus fourth round grade. A lot of the time it's pretty muddy. You could justify either way. It kind of depends more on scheme fit and how the coaches interact with him. So I'm not super upset about that. Again, it's a difference of, maybe 20 picks. Not that big of a deal, especially in the middle of the draft. If you like your guy, go get him. We're not talking about maybe a late first round guy going in the top 5. It's not that big of a deal. So again, I'm totally fine with that pick. Amani Hooker, this was almost the opposite. I thought he was probably going to go a round higher than he did. They got him in the 4th. Very, very instinctual safety out of Iowa. More of a kind of patrol the underneath zones, line of scrimmage. Not more of like an enforcer kind of strong safety, but a guy who's going to generate turnovers because he's got really great instincts, really great ball skills, never misses a tackle. Very, very solid pick for them. I think you can kind of put him in as like a special teams ace / maybe a nickel or dime safety. He'll be backing up Kenny Vaccaro, who had a decent year last year for them. And if they don't feel like they want to pay Vaccaro going forward, I can't remember how many years are left on his deal, but Hooker's a cheap replacement that you can put in immediately. Obviously, they're going to be paying Byard all the money he wants because he's one of the best free safeties in the game. So really, they only had to fill one safety spot, and Hooker was a great value for them. So again, just they're not filling the most pressing needs on the team, but there weren't really that many pressing needs to begin with. So they're getting value. They're going best player available. I really like it so far. They got DeAndre Walker in the 5th round. Again, a really good rotational outside linebacker for them. Probably going to be more of a special teamer, but as far as outside linebacker depth goes, I felt like you could do a lot worse than Walker in the 5th round. So I was pretty pumped on that. And then they got David Long, who to me is probably more of a camp body. But again, if he makes the team on special teams, I really like his athleticism, his tackling ability. I think he's really a good fit as a core special teams kind of guy. So overall, the Titans class might have been the best, or at the very least, top 2 in the division, because they got probably future Pro Bowl talents in Simmons and Brown. They got some special teams help. They got safety depth. They got guard depth. Pretty much everything that they could have wanted out of only 6 picks, they got. So tremendous job by them. I think they're going to be a really tough team to beat next year as long as they stay healthy. That was probably the only thing keeping them from being a really tough team last year, was just all the injuries. So again, the Titans are back, man. They had a hell of an offseason, and the draft just kind of capped that off. So as a Texans fan, it kind of pisses me off, but I mean, hats off to them. They did a great job. And then moving on to the Jaguars, who you could argue had the best draft in the whole division. Again, somehow. It seems like every year the Jaguars somehow come away with an absolutely insane steal. They had Josh Allen fall in their lap at 7th overall, which should not have happened, but it did, and I'm kind of pissed about it. Because now, and again, their number one problem to me wasn't talent, it was how they were going to manage their cap, because they had a truly amazing draft, 3 or 4 years ago, where they hit on all 3 of their first picks, Ramsey, Jack, and Ngakoue, and I didn't think they could afford to pay all of them. So if you'll remember in my mock draft, I said what they do with their first round pick is going to be indicating how they're going to be handling their cap situation, because they got to pay Boye, or at least they got to choose between the Boye contract and the Darius contract, while also paying all of their young defensive talent that was incredibly cheap. And so now you got Josh Allen in the mix, who, to me, if you feel like you can't afford to pay Ngakoue $18 to $20 million a year, which is probably what he's going to end up getting, all of a sudden you got Allen as a cheap replacement. Now you can afford to pay everyone else without losing overall talent on your defense. I mean, I can't believe they're going to get away with this, but they are. Now you can maybe restructure Darius to keep your nose tackle, because he's a pretty key piece for them, even though he is a nose tackle. You can afford to keep your best 2 corners. You can afford to keep your best linebacker, or at least second best linebacker. I know a lot of people like Telvin better. It's an insane scenario for them to be able to pick up right where they left off, even if they lose Ngakoue in free agency, and not lose the overall talent level of their defense. Allen is a tremendous pass rusher. I think he's even more talented than Ngakoue. He's got everything you can want in terms of hip fluidity, explosiveness, speed to power. He can really work the edges, or he can counter back inside. He's good in coverage. He's even more versatile than Ngakoue, because I feel like Allen's better in coverage than even Ngakoue. Not that you're going to be dropping Ngakoue a lot, but now you can if you really want to. So it just pisses me off that they got away with this. I can't believe that the Giants just gave a top 3 or 4 pick to the Jaguars for free by taking Daniel Jones at 6. It not only hurt the Giants, but it hurt everybody else in the AFC South, and it's sickening to me. And then you come back in the second round, this was even worse. So I was a big proponent of taking Jawaan Taylor at 23, since he was just sitting there. Again, this goes kind of back to the Texans a little bit with talking about Titus Howard. There was rumors of a knee injury that was dropping him, so I was like, okay, if we take the knee injury into consideration, Reisner's still higher on my board. But Jawaan Taylor was my number 1 tackle in this whole class, and he was sitting there at 23. Some teams apparently flagged him and some didn't, and the Jaguars ended up getting him in the second round. I mocked this guy in the top 5 to Tampa, and they're getting him in the 3rd pick in the second round. How are they getting away with this every single year? They have ridiculous values fall to them. They're getting their bookend tackles in Robinson and Taylor, and both of them are second-round picks. You look at their offensive line, top to bottom, it's one of the best run-blocking offensive lines on paper in the whole league. As long as they stay healthy, which they haven't stayed healthy the last couple of years, I'll give you that. But if they do stay healthy, you got Robinson, you got Norwell, obviously you got Taylor now on the right-hand side. AJ Khan, he's not a great pass blocker, but I think he can run block pretty well. You got Linder at center, who's a great run blocker. You got Leonard Fournette, who's a human battering ram at running back. This run game, there's no excuse for this run game not being at least top 5 in the league, because they have more beef than I think anyone else in the NFL. And again, it is incredible to me that someone like Jawaan Taylor, who can he's a devastating run blocker. He's a very solid, reliable pass protector. Imagine a better version of Phil Lodeholt. If you remember from the Vikings, he played a long time in Minnesota. But just big, long, strong, just an imposing mountain of a human being. Imagine a better version of Lodeholt, and that's Jawaan Taylor. And if they get him in the second round and his knee's okay, that might be the best pick of the whole draft. And there's been a lot of really good value picks that I'm going to get into throughout the rest of the week, but that pick right there might be the best of the entire draft, because you're getting a top 5 kind of player in the second round for nothing. For nothing. And it sickens me as a Texans fan that we allowed this to happen. Again, it's Jaguars, man. Anyway, so moving on after that, now rant over. Next round 3, they got Josh Oliver, tight end out of San Jose State. Tight end was one of the biggest needs on the roster. They could not get out of the top 3 rounds without addressing that position, in my opinion, and they did it. I like Oliver. I didn't have him as high as maybe some of the tight ends that went after him, but again, it's a huge need. They had to address it. They had no choice but to address it. So I'm glad they did. He's more of a developmental guy to me, but again, we're debating the difference between, a 3rd round pick and a 4th round pick. It's not that big of a deal. If he's your guy, go get him. So I'm totally okay with that. You got Quincy Williams, safety out of Murray State, who to be honest, I didn't watch him leading up to the draft process. I couldn't get my hands on a lot of Murray State tape, so I didn't have a full grade on him. I was reading around, a lot of other people really were digging that pick a lot. They felt like he could come in and be a special teams contributor immediately, maybe even challenge for a starting spot, which, again, I don't have an opinion on him because I didn't do a full grade on him, just full disclosure. But again, if he's your guy, go get him. It's a comp pick anyway, so it's not like it's really costing them that much. It's a free pick. Might as well use it. And then they came back. They got some more running back depth with Armstead. They got Gardner Minshew, who's going to be backing up Nick Foles. I don't know if Minshew's the best fit for them in terms of translating skill set, because their system in Jacksonville is like the polar opposite of what he ran at Washington State. But you know, if he's sitting on the bench and you like his arm talent, you like his leadership, you like his ability to, you know, I guess completely rewire how he processes the game, because he's going to have to, in terms of kind of transitioning from a pure air raid to the more kind of beat 'em up, smash 'em up, pro style, you know, quote unquote pro style system that Jacksonville runs, where it's a lot of I formation, it's a lot of under center, it's a lot of play action. Again, he's going to have to change how he plays the quarterback position to fit into that. But he's a 6th-round flyer. He's a backup. He's a developmental guy. I'm totally fine with that. He's certainly got the talent to justify the pick. So I don't hate it that much. It was more just puzzling to me because he's like the exact opposite of what Jacksonville ran. But whatever. Again, not that big of a deal. And then you got Dontavius Russell out of Auburn in the 7th round. He went probably 2 rounds later than I expected him to go. They needed defensive tackle depth, and they got it. So, again, very solid pick for him. Overall, the Jags draft, between them and Tennessee, those were probably the 2 best in the division. Not just solid, but straight up spectacular. Getting the values of Josh Allen and Jawan Taylor. They got the tight end they wanted. They got some DB depth. They got running back depth. They got quarterback depth. They got defensive tackle depth. I mean, this was a team that was really up against it in terms of depth. They had great starting talent, but razor thin at several areas in this roster. So it was all about acquiring depth. It was all about making sure that their contract situations would be under control and they wouldn't have to completely go bankrupt to afford all of their young talent. So excellent job by Jacksonville. I feel like they secured their future. And also secured their greatest weakness, which was their depth issue. So, again, phenomenal job by them. Let's move on to the NFC North now, and we're going to start with the division winners, the Chicago Bears. There's 2 ways to look at this. And, again, Bears fans might be a little bit upset with me, but there's 2 ways to look at this draft. There's, yes, they address some needs, but I don't feel like they got it for great value. Yes, they addressed the running back need. They got David Montgomery in the 3rd round. They traded up for them. Here's the thing, though. The pick that they traded to New England, they swapped 3rd round picks. They went from 87 up to go get him from where New England was picking. But at 87, which is where New England ended up after the trade, the Patriots got Damien Harris. Damien Harris was a higher graded running back to me than David Montgomery. So the Bears, again, this is just going off my evaluations. It's not the end all be all. It's not gospel. But the Bears traded up to take a lower graded running back, in my opinion. And then the team they traded with got the higher graded running back plus an extra pick. That to me wasn't great value. Yes, they addressed the need. I get that. They really needed a running back, especially one who could play on early downs, because that's not Cohen's game. But the value, it just wasn't there. And to give up an extra 4th round pick to do it, we've seen how valuable 4th round picks can be to the Bears. That's where they got Eddie Jackson. They may have just given up a potential Eddie Jackson-like steal for a lower graded running back. That really bothered me. It really did. Again, the Bears are a great team. They're a loaded roster. They've got almost everything you can ever want in a Super Bowl ready roster. But you cannot maintain that Super Bowl ready roster if you're giving out those crucial mid-round picks to get a lower graded talent. They probably disagree with me. They probably thought David Montgomery was a way better player than Damien Harris. And if they believe that, that's fine. Again, I'm not going to say that they're wrong and I'm right. But my reaction is to stay true to my rankings, and I feel like they kind of got jobbed value-wise, as evidenced by the fact that New England didn't even need a running back, and they took Damien Harris at 87 because they're like, well, damn, like we got him for free and an extra pick. Thank you, Chicago. So that's my biggest problem with it. It just bothered me. The Riley Ridley pick in the 4th round, again, they're probably just going off their board. They're going off their valuations for players. I didn't feel like they needed a wide receiver. I feel like they really needed defensive back depth, which they didn't get until the 6th round when they took Duke Shelley to Kansas State. But I feel like they really could have taken Amani Oruwariye in the 4th round there and gotten a first-round graded corner, but instead they took a wide receiver that, in my opinion, they just didn't need. So again, they're getting talent, but the value and just how they're addressing the few needs on their roster that they actually did have, I didn't agree with how they handled it at all. And then they came back and they got essentially another Tariq Cohen in the 7th round when they got Kareth White from Florida Atlantic. And then they finally got, more DB depth again in the 7th round with Steven Denmark. But, you only had 5 picks to work with. You traded away a future pick to get a running back. I didn't feel like they could afford to give up these picks because they're going to have to pay a lot of people coming up here pretty soon. And their cap is going to be an absolute nightmare in 2 or 3 years. You need those mid-round picks to make sure that you have the depth to survive losing these guys in free agency. You can't pay everyone. That's the price of being a good team. You can't pay everyone. Just giving up that pick, it bothered the hell out of me. And then giving up a perfect opportunity to get Oruwariye and then letting him go to a division rival the next round. Detroit got him. Again, he's a starting caliber corner, and they let him go. I disagreed with their entire draft philosophy. Again, they got some good players. Riley Ridley's not a bad player. David Montgomery, not a bad player. Their approach to this whole draft, I fundamentally disagreed with. They're still a great team. They're going to be a threat to every team in the NFC this season. But if they want to maintain that status as a threat, they've got to handle these opportunities better in the draft to build their depth. I don't feel like they handled the opportunity to keep their depth well. And that's, in a couple years, that might bite them in the ass. So we'll see how it goes. Moving on to the Vikings, who were kind of the polar opposite of Chicago. I mean, they had, 12 picks? It's trade after trade after trade, and just constant accumulation of picks. In the 6th round, they had 3 picks out of 4. The 17th, 18th, and 20th pick in the 6th round. And they were doing the exact opposite of Chicago. They were building depth. Yes, they addressed some crucial needs. They got Garrett Bradbury in the 1st round, who I think is a phenomenal center prospect, especially for a zone system, which they run with Dalvin Cook. And you can't have a solid zone run game without a great center. So Bradbury was... People were thinking, oh, why didn't we take tackle? Well, Bradbury was a pick for Dalvin Cook. It wasn't a pick for Kirk Cousins. Let's be real about it. This is a Gary Kubiak-influenced offense. They're going to run the ball, they're going to run it again, and they're going to run it some more. You can't do that in this offense without a great center. Sorry. It's the most important part of this zone run game. So Bradbury, to me, was a great pick. You wish that they addressed tackle, but they have a philosophy and they stuck to it, and it's a philosophy that I agree with. And then they came back, they got Irv Smith in the 2nd round. Very good, very versatile tight end prospect. Perfect value. I felt like he was probably a 2nd round pick, and they got him in the middle of the 2nd round, so that was perfect value. He is like a Delaney Walker 2.0 in everything he does, as a receiver and as a blocker. You can use him as an H-back. He's a move tight end. You can maybe put him in line a little bit if you want to. He doesn't really have the size of a traditional Y, but he's certainly tough enough to handle blocking assignments from a 3-point stance where you just come off the ball and drive some dudes. He can do that. So extremely versatile tight end. I really like that pick there. Madison, they needed running back depth. They got him in the 3rd round. Very underrated talent out of Boise State. Very, very underrated. And to get him that late in the 3rd, I couldn't be more in love with that pick. And then they got... I don't know how Drew Samia was available in the middle of the 4th round. I thought he was going to go at least, at minimum, 1 round higher. Again, perfect scheme fit for them. Love that pick. They needed guard depth, and they got it. So I think when you look at potentially a starting trio, or at the very least Sammy is probably going to compete for a starting guard spot. You move Elflein out to guard, where Elflein can play center, but he can also play guard, but you put Bradbury at center. They're improving at minimum 2 or 3 spots on that offensive line in 2 picks. Great value for them. They got Smith as linebacker depth and special teams help in the 5th round. And then very, very sneaky good pick in the 6th. They got Armon Watts, defensive tackle from Arkansas. This guy, when I watched him, I was trying to think of who he reminded me of. And he reminded me a lot of Mike Daniels. Just really, really solid. You can put him at anything from a 5 technique down to like a nose tackle. I don't know if they're going to have him maybe backing up Joseph at the 1 technique, but he can absolutely play that if they need him to. He's long as all get out. He's very strong. Not a tremendous pass rusher, but he can provide a little bit of pass rush value inside. Just as a rotational defensive tackle, to get him in the 6th round, I thought he would have gone probably early 5, and to get him mid 6 was great. When they came back 1 pick later, they got Epps, more safety depth out of Wyoming. I don't know, I didn't value him as a starting caliber safety, but I thought he could maybe work his way in there in dime situations, or at the very least be a special teams contributor. So again, they're cultivating depth. Udo, the offensive tackle out of Elon, again, I'll admit I couldn't get really any tape on him, so I didn't really study him, so I don't know what they got out of that, but it's a late 6th round pick, so who cares? It's a flyer anyway. Boyd, the corner out of Texas, I think you take somebody with Boyd's talent and instincts and you let Mike Zimmer coach him up, that's a really, really promising dime corner prospect. I'm very much a fan of that pick. I think he was undervalued in this class as a day 3 developmental talent, so good on them for getting him. And then they got some wide receiver depth, just probably more camp bodies, special teams bodies, guys that you hope turn into really good gunners in Mitchell and Johnson. And then they got a new long snapper, again, who's going to be competing for that starting long snapping job in camp in Austin Cutting. So overall, very, very solid class from Minnesota. A lot of depth, a lot of special teams contributors. I think their special team is going to be really good next year because they brought in a whole bunch of talent that can play on all 4 core special teams. So great job by them. They improved the offensive line, which was their biggest need. They added a tight end, which was a sneaky need, and it has been for a while. Couldn't be happier if I was a Vikings fan with this class. I think they knocked it out of the park. So great job by them. And now let's move on to the Vikings' greatest enemy, the team that all Vikings fans would probably rather see lose than watch themselves win, and that's the Green Bay Packers, who, unfortunately for Vikings fans, though, I feel like the Packers absolutely crushed this draft. Absolutely destroyed it. I mean, they cleaned up. To get Rashawn Gary at 12, who I mocked to them at 12th overall in my mock draft, and you can kind of go back and watch my thoughts on that. That was the one pick that I didn't even expect to quote-unquote get right. I thought I was completely alone in the world and thinking that Gary was a great fit to the Packers. Lo and behold, the Packers thought so too. He is a tremendous scheme fit for them as kind of like their future Jadeveon Clowney type of piece. You can put him at linebacker, you can put him at defensive end, defensive tackle, want him to take snaps at 3 technique, he can do that. Stand him up as like a blitzing middle linebacker, he can do that. The entire Packers defensive scheme relies around throwing waves of pressure at quarterbacks and attacking from all sorts of weird angles with crazy personnel groupings, and Gary is like the epitome of that mentality. To have a piece that you can put at any spot in any personnel grouping and have him help your defense generate pressure. Again, I'm not talking about beating tackles one-on-one off the edge. That's not what he's going to be doing. He can do it, but it's not really what he's going to be doing. He's going to be the kind of guy where you put him at defensive end, you slant him inside to a guard, he absolutely takes that guard's head off and just bowls him out of the way, and then you stunt in behind him with a safety or a linebacker, what have you, who's coming free up the gut, who absolutely lights up Mitch Trubisky on 3rd down. That's his value. His value, and to kind of go with a Chris Sims term, who described Gary perfectly, he leads the league. He led the Big Ten in the one stat that's not actually a stat, the fuck up the play stat. Just the guy who doesn't get credit, he doesn't get the tackle, he doesn't get the sack, he doesn't get the pass defense, but he's the one who sets it up for everyone else to do that. Devin Bush, as good as he was, he wouldn't have been as good if Rashawn Gary wasn't there fucking up the play in front of him. That's just how the Michigan defense worked, and they were a top 2 or top 1 defense for most of the year until they ran into Ohio State because of Rashawn Gary's presence. You don't become first team all Big Ten twice with so few numbers without being a absolutely critical piece to the best defense, arguably, in college football. So Gary to me is a great fit because he fits the need that the Packers have for a guy who can just fuck up the play. and let everyone else get the statistical credit for it. So I'm in love with that pick. And believe it or not, though, I'm even more in love with their second first-round pick, which was Darnell Savage. They traded up to 21st overall to get him. I had him going at 32 in my mock draft, but I remember tweeting this out, I think it was the morning of the draft, that it took everything in me not to mock Savage at 10th overall to Denver. That's how highly I think of him. And I also said this before the draft, that as sure as I was about Eddie Jackson, that's how sure I am about Darnell Savage. I think he is basically Eddie Jackson 2.0. I think they got a future Pro Bowl safety at 21st overall, using that pick that they got from last year from the Saints, trade up to get him. Just an incredible value for them. He plays everything. I mean, you can put him in the slot, you can put him deep, he tackles well, you can put him at strong safety. Not like he's going to be taking on, pulling guards like some strong safeties will, but, if you put him kind of patrolling those short zones as a strong safety, he's going to generate a ton of turnovers for you. He's explosive as a blitzer. And again, he just fits that overall theme of just moving pieces around, creating different looks, throwing waves of pressure, crazy coverages on the back end with crazy blitzes on the front end. Penton, he really needs versatility to make his defense work, and there's no more versatile safety in this class than Darnell Savage. So just an excellent 1-2 punch in the first round for Green Bay. Phenomenal scheme fits. And then they came back again in the second round and got something that most people thought they were going to get in the first round, and that's offensive line help with Elgton Jenkins, who was one of I think it was my fourth rated interior offensive lineman in this class. Might have been third, somewhere between 3 and 5. Really, really good center prospect who can also play guard, so he's got positional flexibility. I'm not sure where they're going to play him, but the fact that he can play all 3 interior positions, no problem, is tremendous value for them. They needed offensive line help, and they got it. And they also needed tight end help, too. They got Jay Sternberger in the third round, who was also one of my top 3 or 4 tight ends. I think he was number 3. No, he was number 4 behind Irv Smith. That's what it was. To get him in the third round, just really, really good athlete. I don't know if he's going to be a true wide tight end right away, but I think he has the size and the build to grow into that kind of role. But you put him as more of a move tight end, kind of a big slot. He'll stretch the seams. You can get him on the run in crossing routes. He's really good after the catch. Really, really love that value for them in the third round. They desperately needed a young tight end to kind of infuse some youthful talent into that group. And Sternberger, to me, was one of the 4 best options in this whole class to do that. So great pick by them. And then they doubled up. They got another Aggie. They got Kingsley Keke, more defensive tackle depth in the 5th round. I really liked him a lot too. I graded him as a 5th round pick, developmental 5th round pick that is, and they got him in the 5th, so perfect value for him. They got corner depth in Kadar Hallman from Toledo. They got Dexter Williams, very underrated running back prospect from Notre Dame in the 6th. I had Dexter graded as a 5th round prospect, so that was good value. Again, I don't think he's going to unseat Aaron Jones at all. I think Aaron Jones is easily the best back on that team still, but they needed depth, and I feel like they got it with Williams. At the very least, I think he's going to be challenging for a backup spot in camp. And then they got Ty Summers, who's special teams help in the 7th round. I don't see Summers as a starting linebacker, but again, a lot of these day 3 picks, the 6th rounders, the 7th rounders, when you see these linebackers that can really tackle well flying off the board in these late rounds, it's for these special teams coaches. That's why you see all these linebackers late in day 3. So again, really like that value for them. Just between a phenomenal first round, upgrading the defense, getting offensive line help, getting tight end depth, getting defensive line depth, getting special teams help, and maybe a backup running back on day 3. This was about as good or as best case scenario of a Packers draft as I can imagine. So great job by them. There's a lot of Packers fans that are somehow really pissed about this class. They think that they took Savage way too early, that they didn't need to trade up for him. They don't like Gary's fit. They think he was a wasted pick. They think they should have gone more offensive line or receiver early, but I do not agree with that at all. I think they were fine at receiver. They took a whole bunch of them last year. I think offensive line, again, they didn't need a stud tackle right now. I know the Balaga's old, but they really needed interior depth more than anything, and that's what they got. They needed extra pressure on defense because I don't feel like either of the Smiths that they signed in the offseason are stud pass rushers in their own right. They're being paid like it, but I don't feel like their talent level is there. So they needed a talent like Gary to help them out. They needed safety depth. Like, to me, they addressed everything they needed and got great talent values along the way. So this was a really, really good class. I would put it right up there with Jacksonville among the best classes in the entire league, to be honest. So again, great job by them. If you're a Packers fan that hated this class, don't, because they killed it. They really, really killed it. Moving on now to the Lions, the last team I'm going to talk about today. Again, this is a class that a lot of hometown fans weren't really fans of. Lions fans, they hated the Hockenson pick maybe more than some Packers fans hated the Gary pick, and I don't get that. Like, to me, the Hockenson, yeah, they needed a tight end. You say, well, the history of top 10 tight ends, it doesn't usually work out. I understand that. But to me, the reason why you take TJ Hockenson is not because he's some unstoppable weapon for Matt Stafford. The reason why Hockenson is different than most other top 10 tight ends is because he can absolutely devastate you in the ground game. This pick was not for Matthew Stafford. This pick was for Kerryon Johnson. And to me, if I'm the Lions front office or I'm the Lions coaching staff, I kind of want to transition this team to a run first, pound Johnson, just block the soul out of people with a true Y tight end that is really a tremendous blocker. They've invested a lot in their offensive line over the past 3 years. Matthew Stafford's still a great quarterback, but it's been proven time and time again that he really shouldn't have everything on his plate. Not that he can't handle it, but it's just too much. It's just too much. He can't do it all by himself. He's not Tom Brady. He needs a run game. He needs a defense. He needs other pieces to actually share some of that load. Because when you put it all on Matt Stafford, yeah, he's going to put up crazy numbers, but you're not going to win a lot of games. He's a great quarterback, but you can't have him drag this team all by himself. It's not going to work. It's never worked. And so when you take Hockenson, that's investing in helping the team help Matt. You're helping Kerryon Johnson be even better than he was as a rookie, and he was great as a rookie before he got hurt. You're giving Matt an extra red zone weapon because Hockenson's great in the red zone. He's a really underrated receiver. So again, this was a pick to improve the offense as a whole, which makes me all for it. Is the history of top 10 tight ends very bleak? Yes, I understand that, but Hockenson is not most tight ends. He's a better blocker than most tight ends. He's one of the few true, complete Y tight ends to come out in, honestly, a very long time. So again, you can't really look at Eric Ebron as a top 10 failure and be like, that's why you don't take a tight end top 10. They're not the same prospect. Ebron's a better athlete, but Hockenson is a better football player. Just straight up, he is a better football player than Eric Ebron. So you can't compare them, in my opinion. Like, this was, would I have taken a tight end top 10? No, I would have taken Ed Oliver. Full disclosure. But I don't hate the pick because he fits what they want to do. He fits how they want to help Matt in the later stages of his career, lead this team back to the playoffs. So I'm totally fine with it. If you want to rip him for the Tavai pick in the second round, go for it. I had him graded as a 5th round pick personally. So, all aboard the hate train for that one. But, and this is interesting, here's how I look at it. Even though they took a 5th round talent, in my opinion, in the second round, obviously they disagree with the evaluation, but that's just where I had them. If you look at them taking a 5th round talent in the second round, look at who they got with their 5th round pick. Amani Oruwariye, who I had graded as a 1st round corner. He was my number 2 corner in this class. So maybe it takes a little bit of mental gymnastics, but it's the same kind of thing I did with Buffalo last year when they took Josh Allen first and then Tremaine Edmonds second. You just flip those names in your head, just pretend that Amani was your 2nd round pick and Jelani was your 5th round pick, and you're good to go. That's how I look at it. You got a starting corner in the 5th round. To me, that makes up for everything. You can be mad at the Hockenson pick. You can be mad at the Tavai pick. You got a freaking starting corner in the 5th round. One of the 3 best corners in this class. Yeah, at the very least, one of the 5 best. It's debatable. Some people might not think he's one of the 3 best, but at the very least, I think he's one of the 5 best. So that's incredible value. Will Harris, I didn't see him as a starting caliber safety. He's probably more of a nickel safety or a dime safety, depending on what kind of defense they want to play against what personnel packages. But at the very least, he's going to give you special teams value. Austin Bryant, I think, is a very underrated rotational defensive lineman. Kind of kind of more of a tweener, but he really fits the style of defense they like to play. Ironically enough, I compared him to Trey Flowers, who's also in Detroit now. They're kind of the same guy, so they probably drafted Bryant to almost like play the Flowers role and back him up directly in how they use both of them. So I was totally fine with that pick. But again, getting Amani in the 5th round was the centerpiece of the whole class, in my opinion. That was a tremendous pick. And by the way, they also got Isaac Nada in the 7th round, who probably went a full round lower than I expected. I thought he was going to go in the 6th. With Hockenson there, clearly he's not going to be the starting tight end there, because Hockenson is infinitely better than Nada. But Nada, I think, is going to end up as like a fan favorite, because he's going to catch 2 balls a game, but they're both going to be on 3rd and 11. That's kind of what he was for Georgia, where like when you really, really, really need a first down and you need it from somebody who's not being double teamed, go to Isaac Nada. You put in a 12 personnel set with Hockenson and Nada, it's 3rd and 12, it's 3rd and 13, you're running a seam concept, they're going to be doubling Hockenson, you throw it backside to Nada, he's going to be open every time, he's going to catch it every time, and he's not going to catch anything for the rest of the game, but he's going to convert that 3rd down, and there's value in that. There's value if you're carrying 3 tight ends, having that kind of guy on your roster, where you just put him in on like the 3 plays that you really need him in. So, again, I'm totally cool with that pick. I had him as a 6th round talent. At the very least, he's going to give you some special teams value as a blocker. Probably on the kickoff and punt teams. I think he's going to be a really solid blocker on those. And you got P.J. Johnson, who's a developmental rotational defensive tackle in the 7th round. I don't know if he's going to make the team, but it's a 7th round flyer. Who really cares anyway? At the very least, he's talented. He can compete for a backup job. So I'm pretty okay with that pick as well. Overall, Lions fans, I know a lot of you guys are more pissed at your class than maybe any other team I've gone over today, but just chill. Honestly, I feel like they did a pretty good job. Hockenson improves your offense in way more ways than one. The Tavai pick, objectively, I didn't agree with it at all, but they came and redeemed themselves in the 5th with Oruwariye. They got a really good backup to Trey Flowers and Austin Bryant, who's essentially the same player. You get him in the 4th round. You got tight end depth. You got special teams contributors. Like, you're fine. You're fine. Was it your dream class? Were you annoyed that you were only 1 pick away from Josh Allen? Were you annoyed that you passed on Ed Oliver? Yeah, and you're right to be, but it wasn't bad. You guys got to chill. If you're still pissed, feel free to let me know in the comments, but just know ahead of time, I flat out disagree with you. I think you guys did fine. But anyway, that'll wrap it up for today. Again, I wanted to do more deep dives into teams individually, division by division. This ended up being probably a lot longer than I expected, but that's also probably what you guys were hoping for. So we did AFC South and NFC North today. Checking my schedule real quick. Tomorrow on Wednesday, I'm doing the AFC West and the NFC East. So we're going to dive heavily into the Daniel Jones situation and the Dwayne Haskins situation. So keep an eye out for that. That one's probably going to be super long, but anyway, those are my thoughts on the first 2 divisions in this 4-part series. Hope you guys enjoy it. Feel free to leave some comments and questions down below if you have any. And thank you for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. Later.